I was scared. I was scared to live my life. I think is what it comes down to.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I felt like I wasn't really like, hey, I'm here.
Time to live.
Yeah.
Welcome to The Well. I'm Anson Mount.
I am Brandon Edgens.
And today I have for you the second interview I did with Ethan Peck, who's playing Spock on Star Trek Discovery. It was Ethan's last day of work, and earlier in the season he'd mentioned to me something about how, well, the situation where he had almost lost his life once had led him to where he was, meaning standing right in front of me. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I had to get that down on tape. And so the last day of work, it was my last opportunity, so I forced him into my trailer. It was cold. You'll hear the heater in the background. And I was on pins and needles, and it proved worth it. Are you excited?
I'm excited. I mean, you can't. There's no bigger setup than a life or death almost died setup. So
Better
yes,
be good. All right, I hope it's good. Enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's actually like the inception of the existential crisis that I had, like a little over a year ago, that I think gave me deep insight into where Spock is at in this moment in his life. So I was 21. No, I was 22, and I was on a TV show called 10 Things I Hate About You, and we were picked up for 10 episodes, and I had to get my motorcycle permit. So that, because my character rode a motorcycle, so that I could at least sit on it and ride it in and out of shots. I never ended up riding it in and out of shots because they didn't trust me to do that, obviously, because I'm some idiot 22-year-old. Right. But so I had the learner's permit, and so it's basically a safety course to teach you how to ride. Episode 10, last episode, the first order, I wake up and I'm like, I'm gonna get my license today. I had the day off, and I read the manual that morning because I can bypass the driving test, so it's much simpler. Went in, took it, passed. Had been eyeballing motorcycles for the last couple of months. Was on Craigslist, found this dude in the valley, bought this metallic black and purple 1992 Yamaha FZR 600R, just fully analog. No ABS, nothing electronic on it. And it was beautifully preserved. And 5 days later, I was riding back home. I was never going to drink when I rode the motorcycle, just because that's, you're really rolling the dice if you do that.
Yeah, that's stupid, yeah.
And so I'm riding back from Roger Room, which is on La Cienega in Hollywood. And I was at the time living at Fairfax and Selma, which is a 10-minute ride, and which is also a 5-minute ride from the freeway. And I was heading home, and I was like, I just really want to see the downtown lights rise. And this motorcycle was new. The experience was new. I was so excited. And so I got into the 101 South. It's 1:30 in the morning on a Wednesday night. And I'm riding, my head's down. I'm checking my mirrors every couple of minutes because you ought to know what's behind you. And the last time I look, each side view mirror is just filled with headlights. And I'm like, that car's gonna hit me. And it was maybe a fraction of a second, but I was like, the car's gonna hit me. My mom's gonna find out because I hadn't told her.
Hadn't told her you got a motorcycle?
Right.
Oh, God.
And she obviously didn't want me to have a motorcycle. And
For exactly this
for
reason.
exactly this reason. And hopefully I don't die. The car crushes me. And I fly, it's like blurs of light as I spin through the air. And it goes lights out for like a half of a second. And I land on my back, and I'm skidding on my back. I have an armor jacket, a full face helmet, gloves, boots, but jeans on. And I'm sliding for 100 yards.
Oh my God.
And I have my left hand down on the ground to stop myself. I'm in the fast lane at this point. I was one in when the car hit me. And as soon as I come to a stop, my first instinct is I'm okay. It's all like slow motion, right? This is all probably all happening in the
So you're
space.
still
of,
conscious.
yeah, this
Okay.
is happening in the space of like 10 seconds maybe. And my instinct is I'm okay. I get up and I've never been more winded in my entire life. I'm like, I played football and I've been like badly winded playing sports, but like this was empty, 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 and I can't breathe. And I get up because there are still cars in the freeway, and I get up and I straddle the concrete median right over from the fast lane, and I'm looking left, which is now behind me, which was ahead of me, to see where the motorcycle went, and I can't see it. I can't find it. I'm like, what just happened? Like, and I know I'm going into shock, and I thought maybe the bike had been launched off of the freeway or onto the other side of the freeway, and I'm like panicking because I'm like, this motorcycle's black. It's going to be causing accidents. Like cars are going to be crashing into it, and the face shield from the helmet was gone. And I'm like touching my face, and I'm like, oh my god, is my face okay? Because I just like your adrenaline just goes through the roof. You can't
and you're
feel
an
anything.
actor.
Yeah, I'm an actor. And so I start like, I'm out of my mind at this point, and I start running the direction of the flow of traffic on the freeway, trying to wave a car down because I'm just like, what? Like, hold on! Like I just don't know what to do. And and I forgot an important part. When I looked to see where the bike was, there was a red car fishtailing like 100 yards down from me, fishtailing and smashing into the median.
Oh my god.
And these 4 guys jumped out of it and ran across the freeway to the shoulder. And so there's still traffic at 1:30 in the morning in LA, as you know. And finally there's a break, and I run across the freeway to the shoulder to meet these guys. And they're like hopping up and down on adrenaline. They're like, yo, man, that guy almost hit you. And it was this Toyota, and I saw you, and I pointed at you, and I was like, yo, yo, yo. And so the passenger spotted me, and the driver like overcorrected and sent his car into a fishtail. Anyways, they had already called the ambulance. I am just don't know what to do, and ambulance comes, and they stabilize my neck, and I'm like, maybe I'll die. Like I don't know. Like I hit the ground very violently, and I call my dad, and he's like, he goes to bed at like 10:30, and I'm like, hey dad. I put on my like super calm voice. I'm like, hey dad, a car hit me. I was on my motorcycle. Like the last call your father ever wants to receive
Right.
from his son. And he's like, okay, and like immediately gets in the car and comes to the hospital. I'm at Kaiser Permanente in Silver Lake or Los Feliz or whatever. And I get there, and I'm like having a panic attack because I'm worried maybe I've ruptured an organ or something, or I'm bleeding internally because my body felt crazy, and I have all this road rash on my left butt cheek and my thigh because I was wearing jeans. And I look normal, and so you wouldn't think I was just like in a high-speed wreck. And so I'm getting X-rays taken, and the guy's like, "Stand up." He's like getting frustrated with me, and I'm like, like, please, like I need to see the doctor. I'm really worried that something's wrong inside. And he's like super frustrated because I look normal. And they like bring me back into the ER. They're like gonna put me through a CAT scan. I drink this like beryllium drink that like illuminates your body to the MRI.
Right.
All your veins, I guess, or nervous system.
Disgusting.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And I go take the MRI, and I get back in the room, and my dad shows up, and I just like burst into tears because I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen. And he was so amazing and solid for me, and it was interesting because he is a Vietnam vet, and for the first time I kind of caught a glimpse of maybe what he was like in a place of elevated emotion and trauma, you know, as I imagine he was.
Wow.
He was just super calm and
Yeah.
wasn't freaking out, and I was completely freaking out. And they put me under because I was like having a panic attack. And I wake up to these 2 sheriffs coming in, like very kind of somberly and respectfully, and they're like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I was like I just got hit by a truck. Like I feel crazy. Like where was the motorcycle? They were like, it was still attached to the car about a mile down the road, upright. And I was like, what? They were like, yeah. I was like, who was driving it? They were like, the car was reported stolen about an hour ago, and it was abandoned, and the guy's gone. And I was like, what? That's so. They're like, yeah, we'll look for him, but it's not likely. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so the guy it was like something like reached out of the darkness and like touched me in
Yeah,
a way.
right.
Like it was very harrowing, and all the tests came back clear. I had cracked a bone in my ankle, which I think I hit coming over the roof of the car. I think it clipped it, and that's what sent me spinning. All the doctors on shift kept coming in. Each like there were like 4 or 5 of them. They were like, "Are you the guy?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "You're the motorcycle crash." And I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Do you know how lucky you are?" And it was so heavy, and it made me feel like, have I died, and am I just dreaming out the rest of my life? Like it really sent me spinning.
Hmm.
And they sent me off with a soft cast, and I left at like 6 in the morning the next day, and and I had to go into work the next week. This was a
Was there
Wednesday.
any internal damage?
So no, there wasn't anything.
Huh.
And so, but I was afraid to go to sleep
Oh, wow.
because I was so scrambled. But like my sister actually spent the night with me one of these, maybe the first night, because I was so scared. I was afraid to fall asleep, and that was the first time I was really like, well, this is so fragile. And also, why am I so lucky? Like, born into this body in this part of the world, and this to the family I've been born to. You know, like on a TV show right now. I'm a young kid, and that was the beginning of kind of a long odyssey of like, what's going on here? What are we doing here? And that I think culminated in this kind of period of existential dread I had last year, and in this role, I feel like this role is a result of the work I did over these years on that journey of trying to get through that.
Was it time to grow up, or was it self-analysis, or what was it?
Yeah, I think it was self-analysis. I think it was understanding how to drive the car that I had, that I have, which I'm still trying to figure out. Like when I showed up here, I was like freaking out, like, is this okay? Like, because my mother was managing me for such a long time. I felt there were parts of me that were completely underdeveloped, and so it was a long time of understanding my situation, where I've been, where I'm going, why I'm going there, why are we here, like the bigger silly questions that actors often probably think about, that I'm sure you've thought a lot about.
Yeah.
I was scared to live my life, I think is what it comes down to.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I felt like I wasn't really like, hey, I'm here.
Time
you
to
know?
time to live.
Yeah.
Time to live.
And I feel like I'm still learning how to do that.
I can honestly say you are doing much better at this age than I was.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You have a much firmer grasp on who you are and what it is that you want to do, and you're even self-confidence than I had.
Wow.
At 32. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm
Yeah.
shocked to hear that.
Definitely. And I was a very self-analytical person. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I relate to you in that way, very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think you can articulate what the next steps are? Or?
For the first time in my life, I feel like I have no idea. And maybe it's not acting. I feel like total unknown, but for the first time, like available to that, and like, yeah, it. Let's see what happens. But really deeply, on a deep level, where I'm not like filled with terror, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, this will come out, and we'll go to the opening, and we'll go to some conventions, and I mean, I'd obviously love to keep acting and keep getting better at that. I just want to be present, with everything that's going on, because I think it's easy in this industry to check out of certain things because it's so intense. There's so much energy that comes at you when you're in the position that we are, and I'm sure you've seen a lot more of that than I have, and it's difficult to navigate that. But
see, that's
yeah.
what you have. That's what you have that I didn't at this age, is a sense of identity apart from what it is that you do.
Oh.
And I think maybe I thought that I had that, and I really didn't.
Interesting.
So much of my identity was tied up in what I did for a living.
Wow.
Or my quote-unquote art. That rather than it be the other way around, that the art is just an extension of your journey, of your investigation.
Whenever I see like some footage of myself, I'm like, I hate me. Like
You are still grappling with imposter syndrome a little bit.
oh yeah,
And I grappled with that as well. It got really bad in my mid-30s, until I realized what it was and what it was that was happening.
what was it?
Well, it manifested differently for me. Like, see, for me, it would happen when a piece of work was about to be unveiled, whether a movie or a play or whatever. Or I would get hit out of the blue with this just tremendous sense of guilt for no reason.
Whoa.
And I didn't know where it was coming from. And I was just crushed by a sense of guilt. And it would just debilitate me. And now, there is a side of this that I did not understand how depression worked at the time. That was part of it. But the source, the trigger for that was, I was a nerd in school. I was the kid that was picked on and stuffed in trash cans for a while when I was young.
No
during
way.
adolescence.
I was teased a lot.
So I'm like, this thing of like Anson Mount leading man on the red carpet, everybody screaming his name, is very weird to the young Anson,
Yeah.
And I realized, that's where it's like, I'm not supposed to. The young Anson is still inside thinking I'm not supposed to stand up in front of people and say things. I'll get my butt kicked. I'll get laughed at. And then once I realized that, it went away. It just it completely disappeared. Yeah. And it just took us, an ability to realize that young adolescent Anson was still pulling the strings.
Yeah.
To realize, okay, I'm a different person now.
Yeah.
I can be older, mature Anson and own it and be okay with it and know that I'm not gonna screw it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still cutting strings. I'll notice things. I'll be like, oh my gosh, that's what that is.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
How do you feel finishing this up?
It's always bittersweet, finishing a long stint of work. You get better at it, especially now that I have a wife that I'm looking forward to going home to.
Yeah.
It's not as bitter as it is sweet anymore. I had a great time. I feel good about the work. That's always good. That helps. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, me too.
I've never been on such pins and needles, but then again, I've never been a built-in fan of the thing that I was going to do, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's weird. It's been weird sitting in the captain's chair. Now it's gonna be even weirder watching me sit in the captain's chair.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
It's gonna be amazing.
I think so.
You're
too.
shooing.
I think it's gonna look phenomenal. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I'll miss you.
I'll miss you too, brother. It's been quite a journey.
Oh, and there's the knock on the door. Hello.
Hello.
They
We're
ready?
back from lunch.
All right.
I need in prosthetics.
Let's do it.
All
I'll
right.
see you in a minute.
See you, buddy.
Anson, do you normally do your touches on the trailer or on set, my dear?
On set.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
I will give you a warning.
Great. I'm gonna shoot some coffee and try to wake
Sounds
myself
good.
up.
I'm gonna put a piece of tape.
Okay.
What are you recording?
Don't say that. That was fun.
We're about to do your final shot.
We're about to do the final shot of the season today.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Weird.
Yeah, it feels very surreal. I'm not really. It doesn't really. Doesn't feel logical.
No, it doesn't. Speech.
Oh God. This has been such a surreal experience. I can't believe this is over now. This seemed like an impossible task, and what happens here is so special. Every day, what you do here is magical, and it means a lot to everybody. in the world that watches it, I think. And I feel so moved and grateful to have been here. And I look into your faces, every single one of your faces every day, and you make me feel special. And I mean, I'm playing Spock, so I've got that going for me, but I think I've been myself enough around you, and I feel safe to be myself. And for the first time in my life, I feel like I belong. And that's a big deal for me. So thank you all so much. It's been such a special thing.
Yeah, it was kind of cool listening to you pass on wisdom to the young buck.
That just seems like it should not be happening,
But it is.
I guess.
And it is. No, it's definitively happening. And anyone knows, and if you don't believe it, you recorded it. You can go back and listen to it happening. It's always. We've talked a lot about this, our whole lives really, and on the show as well. That on a most basic level, self-conscious, it's always some sort of self-consciousness, and especially when someone attributes some sort of wisdom to you that you don't feel like you have. Mm-hmm. It always feels, no, not me. Still, the first thing that jumped out at me listening to that when he's telling the story about the accident was the very, very clear impression of a young man who is really in the thick of that, struggling with his place and whether or not he should have these things in his life, or he deserves these things, because the first thing that happens, his first thought before he gets hit by the car is, "Oh no, my mom." Mm-hmm. And then he's straddling the median, thinking, "I hope my bike isn't causing accidents."
Yeah,
I don't think those are super uncommon feelings to have, and I think that's something that as a species is more common than we let on for some reason.
you mean that he's thinking about other people?
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't think Ethan has really stopped to realize that either, that quality in him is what is going to is what makes him special, and is what's going to carry him into lands of success, no matter what he decides to do or where he decides to go. And Ethan, I know you're listening to this. Stop asking yourself how you're sounding.
Wait a minute. Hold on, I have an opinion on this.
What?
We only said hi in the parking lot. How you're sounding specifically?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I know he's listening to his own voice.
I know it's a different kind of listening.
Yeah.
But let me just say that one thing that's almost incongruous about you, and now we're suddenly talking to Ethan on our podcast that everyone's listening to, but I'm just going to keep going with this, is that your voice has this tremendous authority to it.
Mine does?
No, not you. I'm talking to Ethan right now.
Oh. Okay.
That it's always the surprise when you find out the person you thought had their shit together doesn't feel like they have their shit together, which is pretty much everybody, unless they're a narcissist or something, in which only a narcissist is like, I totally have my shit together, more than anyone, in fact. But especially Ethan's voice, which was a subject of conversation. It's like, wow, he just starts talking and everyone else falls silent and just wants to sit there and listen to his voice. I understand it's a completely different thing externally, being on the outside and going, wow, what a mellifluous, amazing voice. It's powerful, it's soothing, it's got gravitas, it's got all of that great male voice stuff going on in it. And it's kind of like finding out that James Earl Jones stuttered. And again, that's one of those, but his voice is the quintessential voice of authority. But in his mind, it was he can't. I've heard there was an interview somewhere out there with James Earl Jones saying, "I can't believe I'm the voice of authority," because I'm constantly wondering, am I even saying the right thing or not? You know, like this insecurity is something that everyone struggles.
Yeah, and it also,
With-
you know, that tendency to be self-analytical, it's never going to go away,
Yeah.
Ethan. It's the same for me. I was just listening to us play back this episode for Brandon's sake, and normally when I edit an episode, I try to edit myself out as much as possible. And on this one, the conversation was a good one, and I sat here, I was thinking, wow, oh yeah, I sounded pretty. Yeah, those are good ideas, man. You become less negative, and in the voice, the editor's voice becomes softer, but it's always there, and you can't get rid of it. You're never gonna get rid of it. There's no point in trying to get rid of it. It will always be there. You just learn to work with it better, I think.
And most of all, I keep talking about this sort of like appearance versus how you feel inside, in this dichotomy. That's what helps me, is knowing like this. Everyone feels this way. It's knowing you're not alone in this does wonders.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, I remember when you were going through that period in your
Really?
mid-30s. Oh yes, we were driving. I think it was after that. I think it was after that time that we all rented, or you rented that place up in Swanee, and we spent Christmas or New Year's or something drinking absinthe and watching a tiny little LED Christmas tree turn around playing It's a Small World After All or something. I don't know. It was so weird. And it was like the most low-key New Year's Eve I've ever experienced. Because everyone's like, is the absinthe working? Like, I think it is. We've been staring... I don't feel a lot, but we have been staring at this tiny little LED Christmas tree turn around for like an hour. So I think it's working. And you had, I didn't realize, I knew that you were going through a rough patch, but I didn't realize how rough it was when you said, I don't know if I want to keep doing this acting thing. And I was like, whoa, wow, that's a lot. And if I've ever said anything wise to anyone, it was in that moment where you said, like, I said, maybe the problem is that you are identifying yourself as an actor, and that will drive you nuts. Because if that's your only, if you feel like that's all you have to contribute to the world, and then your last movie sucks or doesn't think reflects who you are, then yeah, you're going to be a emotional pinball, just getting shot all over the place, by the way things react, and you get slung around by other people's reactions, to you, and it surprised me when I said that, like, well, don't call yourself an actor then, just keep acting, but don't call yourself one, because that's the problem. And you got really silent for like 15-20 minutes. You went to one of those super intense focused phases you go into, that I go into as well. And then you came out of it, you're like, that's good. That's good. I hadn't thought of that. And it surprised me, like, what do you mean you haven't thought of that? That hasn't occurred to you yet? Well, yeah, that's probably your problem.
Well, it was a good conversation because it succeeded, and it separated out for me the difference between my career and my creative juice.
Yeah.
And the creative juice doesn't always have to do with my career, and that's okay. And I realized that for me, what I need to be happy is to be creating all the time, whether I'm getting paid for it or not.
Right.
Which is part of what led to things like this podcast. It's
Right.
why we're here right now in this tiny bedroom in Brooklyn.
Right. And
Talking about conversations that have already happened.
and assuming on some sort of leap of arrogance that other people are going to find this really interesting too.
Yeah, and then we'll sell our business plan.
Oh, that's right. What happened to our business plan? My business plan was I was going to make a movie that made a ton of money. That's my plan. We should get back on that.
Well is produced, recorded, and edited by Brandon Edgens and myself, Anson Mount. The theme music for this episode was performed and recorded by Brandon based on a composition by Jonathan Myberg. The song you're hearing right now is titled Death Valley Waltz by Lucas Gonza, and it is provided under a Creative Commons 1.0 Universal License. Special thanks to Ethan Peck for being a great castmate, a generous guest, and a remarkable human being. And we'd again like to thank the Star Trek Discovery family as well as the global Star Trek community. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And do us a favor, give us a review. Reviews help us by helping more people find the well. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great week.